Judge Cannon heard Trump's bid to dismiss the case 3 weeks ago. She finally filed a ruling today after Jack Smith's filing insisted she do something or he was going to go to a higher court. What's your take on this?
Yeah, so this ruling has some good, some bad, and some ugly, Stephanie. It's good insofar as it goes. She reached the only result she really could reach here, denying Trump's motion to dismiss, at least for now. But the bad is that it's not a final ruling. And as we saw her do previously with Trump's motion to dismiss on vagueness grounds, she leaves the possibility open that she could have a different ruling during trial. And as we've been discussing, that's dangerous for the prosecution. If they get a ruling from her now before trial and they don't like it, they can appeal it. If she doesn't rule until after the jury has been sworn in and double jeopardy has been attached, they can't take an appeal. The case is essentially over if she rules against them or if a jury acquits. So the ugly part of this is for Jack Smith to figure out, what does he do next? Will he file, as some have suggested, a motion for mandamus, asking the 11th Circuit to order her to clarify the ruling? Or might he file a motion in limine, the sorts of pretrial motions prosecutors file, asking for a ruling on the jury instructions before trial? I think that both of those are problematic. He might not be able to win because of the way she's postured this case. His best shot might be a straight-up motion asking her to recuse at this point on the basis of multiple bad rulings. But at least insofar as this goes, this is the start of good news and perhaps some suggestion that Judge Cannon, when her feet are held to the fire, which is what Jack Smith did with his response to her request for jury instructions, that she at least understands what she's being told.
She definitely reacts when her feet are held to the fire because she doesn't want this to go to the higher court. However, she also responded by smacking him down. What could that mean for a potential trial that Jack Smith may have made an enemy of Aileen Cannon?
Well, so I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that Judge Cannon isn't on the government side in this case, simply because her rulings have been so out of the ordinary, so inconsistent with accepted legal doctrine. I mean, lawyers have disagreements with judges all the time. No one likes to lose a motion. That's not what this is. Her rulings have been contrary to well-established law. And it's no exception here, because the fact of the matter is she's saying, well, maybe Trump could offer some facts at trial that would reinvigorate this Presidential Records Act defense. And that's simply not the case. The Presidential Records Act isn't some sort of magic wand that excuses criminal possession of classified documents by a former president. The fact that she'll even entertain that speculation suggests that this is a case where Jack Smith will have to find a way to get this in front of the 11th Circuit in hopes of having her removed before the trial takes place.
Peter, what do you think about what Andrew Weissman said, that Judge Cannon pointed out how complex this case is? And he said, no way, it is cut and dry. What do you think?
Well, I think, in fact, a lot of lawyers think it is pretty cut and dry. Of the 4 cases that have been lodged against President Trump, this one seems the most open and shut, at least according to legal experts. You're not entitled to take classified documents with you. He tried to prevent the government from getting them back when they asked for them. He defied a subpoena. According to evidence submitted by the prosecution, at least, he conspired with other members of his team, of his staff at Mar-a-Lago to prevent the government from finding these documents, from bringing them back. It wasn't a case that, he brought some in the box and didn't realize he had. He actively made an effort, according to evidence that's been submitted, to try to prevent the government from handling it. This is not novel. I mean, people get in trouble for a whole lot less in the handling of classified documents. We've seen that time and time again. The question about January 6th and the question about this hush money case in New York we're about to see start, they arguably raise some interesting legal questions we haven't seen before. But as I think Weissman is correct to say that what's really novel about this is that it's a former president of the United States, not the issue of handling classified documents.
I would like our audience to know that Molly is such a superb nerd that when other guests are answering questions, she's feverishly taking notes to prepare to answer hers. So get ready for a good one. Molly, these 2 judges, I just love it. There you are. I'm like, what is she writing down? These 2 judges today rejected Trump's efforts to dismiss these cases. Peter just said it. He's got the Alvin Bragg case coming up in 11 days. Are his efforts to delay, are they becoming less effective?
Well,
is the road coming to an end?
Well, this is the big question. And it's funny because the New York Times did this big story about how Trump had spent $100 million on legal fees.
Or someone spent $100 million on behalf of Donald Trump.
Right. But that's a staggering sum of money.
Sure is.
And it's worked in a lot of ways, right? Because he's only facing one trial at this moment, which is kind of incredible considering that he has 91 counts he's facing and that he's managed to punt these 3 other trials. So I would say what you see with these lawyers is they are throwing everything they can against the wall, right? Anything they can. I mean, the First Amendment protects him from, maligning the judge's daughter. I mean, just any ridiculous excuse. And so I think he's gotten to be able to really delay the accountability the way that it should have. And honestly, that is really in itself a sign that the guardrails have not held.
All right, Joyce, new topic. I want to talk about Donald Trump's social media company now publicly trading Truth Social. Until today, he was relatively quiet. He wasn't talking about it much. But then he went on a big rant on his platform today, talking up the stock, saying all these positive things about the company. Isn't that dangerous? Because if he is saying anything that is materially incorrect, won't he attract a lot of attention from federal regulators, the SEC? That could bring shareholder lawsuits his way.
So, he started this morning before the opening bell, right? Talking up this stock in ways that are possibly misleading. And I say possibly advisedly, because this is the sort of a situation that certainly for folks at the SEC, maybe for prosecutors, possibly for shareholders, this is the sort of setting where you start to wonder if what's going on is completely kosher. And so it requires some investigation to look into precisely what he's saying and precisely what the position of the stock is, and to contemplate whether there's some fraudulent effort here to pump up value or to encourage investors to take steps on the basis of fraudulent intervention. And that can lead, although it's not a fast process by any means, to some sort of investigation. There's even the possibility of parallel proceedings where the Justice Department and the SEC are working in tandem on these cases. So, look, I think it's far too early to say with any definitive sort of a conclusion that that's what's going on here. It certainly will raise some interest.
But of course, and noteworthy, while Donald Trump owns 60% of the company, oddly, he is not on the board. He is not a director. And that might end up protecting him, where he could say, I'm just a guy who owns a whole lot of shares. I can't be held accountable like an actual CEO or an officer of the company. That might be by design. Only time will tell. Peter, I want to talk about some reportings from your colleagues at the Times, reporting on Trump businesses and how they have become less about the hotels and more about the golf resorts, and how the Saudis are playing a huge role in this. Of course, Donald Trump is a presidential candidate. How is it that more people are not raising alarms about huge conflicts of interest?
Well, what's remarkable, of course, is you hear congressional Republicans talk a lot about the foreign business entanglements of the incumbent president's son, right? That he was paid money by businesses in Ukraine and China, and therefore, ergo, those must be bribed by foreign interests in order to influence the current president. Now, they have no evidence that President Biden, either as president or vice president, ever took any actions as a result of his son's business efforts, even if his son was profiting off of the Biden name. But you hear a lot of talk about Republicans about how concerning this is. You don't hear a lot of talk about how concerning it is that Trump himself continues to do business overseas. He and his family have long had assets and projects and other interests in foreign countries, and that was a big issue while he was president. He continued to get some cash in from foreign interests. At the same time, he, of course, is setting foreign policy. No country, or very few countries, are more in the thick of our foreign policy right now than Saudi Arabia, which is looking to the United States in terms of its position in the Middle East vis-a-vis Israel, in terms of its position in the Middle East vis-a-vis Iran. It has a great deal of interest in the Trump administration, which protected it from consequences after the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, the Washington Post journalist who was dismembered by Saudi agents, reportedly sent, according to the CIA, by the Saudi crown prince. So yes, of course, there's an obvious set of questions that will be raised here. They know who's running for president. They know what the polls are. They're paying attention in Riyadh to what's happening here, and they have a great interest in who's sitting in the White House next year.
Joyce, let's talk about Trump's other money issue, his $175 million bond in the civil fraud case. Explain to us what New York AG Tish James may be looking for in asking for more information. You know, it's not just a regular old bank or lender that's backing him. This guy in L.A. in the business that he's always been in, I mean, subprime auto lending. This is like the former president of the United States going to a payday lender, basically, like the riskiest low-end lender.
It's an awfully odd place for someone like Donald Trump to go to post a bond. So Tish James is concerned that this bond does not secure the full amount of the judgment that she's entitled to. And you'll recall that that's after the Court of Appeals in New York actually reduced the bond from $450 million plus to $175 million. Now she seems to have concerns that there's not sufficient cash in the entity that's offered the security, the surety bond to fulfill that obligation if Trump defaults. So the judge will, I think, permit her to engage in a hearing where they will push on the integrity of this offering, because if in fact this is not sufficient surety to secure Trump's debt in the event he loses on appeal, then there will have to be some sort of a substitute or additional bond placed in order to avoid Tish James immediately going about the business of collecting on the judgment by going after Trump's properties.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.